Well, to me, it seems to be built in the theoretical mindset from the beginning. So this is really not saying something that was not within the theory already from the beginning. That is what you can read in the text. This really doesn't add anything. Moreover, you can ask, because maybe this is unfair also, because this article was written in 1987, but it still is very often cited. So researchers, because of the system, in a way are, even if they want it or not, I don't know, but they come back to this article. I can't see why, because the characteristic of successful entrepreneurs, there has been a lot of research efforts, and the conclusion, as far as I can understand, if you accumulate every piece of that research, is that it has not been possible to make any kind of prediction based on assessing the characteristic of an individual if he will become a successful entrepreneur. But it is still in the textbooks because it seemed to be impossible to get rid of this idea. Even if research, although so much efforts have been done in order to find out this. However, since I think the middle of the beginning maybe of the 1990s, few new research has been made upon this because researchers have realized, I think, those who really are in it have realized that we cannot find any knowledge about this. Maybe this also has to do with a kind of simple causation effect, because in order to predict if an individual will become a successful entrepreneur, well, this is such a complicated issue that even if you have 10 or 20 or 30 characteristics which you could combine in different ways, and that may, you know, if you calculate the number of combinations, it will be millions or billions of combinations, and you easily realize that this way it will be impossible to say something intelligent about this. So my conclusion is this is really nothing more than nonsense, and still it is the most published, or at least was in 2005, the most published journal article in entrepreneurship in the SCSI system. And this system is forced upon this university, I think, and several other universities. This is not good. So, something more about the gap between the academic world and the practical world. So, we have the idea that management knowledge can travel from management knowledge to consultants, that is from the academic to consultants who can process this knowledge in order to increase its applicability and pass it on in the form of transferable practices to business organizations. That is, when it comes to management, the society has found a media, you could say, which is consultants. Consultants are believed, I think, still, to be able to be a mediator between the academic knowledge and the practical context, which means that they will be able to give relevant knowledge to improve businesses. However, Manfred Kieser in 2002 have investigated this issue, and his argument is that the management science, consultancy business, and business practices, they represent three separate systems with huge communication barriers between them. So this means that he suggests that yes, the consultants are there, but still it does not seem to work. And here we have an interesting situation, because the consultancy business, which maybe was founded in US, began in the 1920s, 30s or so, it has been growing ever since, and it has been growing more and more. So that means that it seems in that way that consultants would be an efficient mediator. You could assume that, because why else would clients, organizations decide to buy more and more consultancy services? However, one little reflection from my point of view, as I said in my life story, I really could not give very good answers to my cousin, who continued asking me, now can you tell me what I shall do to improve my farming business? Why? It was not so difficult for me to sell consultancy services for consultancy organizations who wanted to improve their services to, for example, farmers and other small businesses. So I hope you see the point there. It seems that the demand is there, but when it comes to the very crucial point, it doesn't seem to work. Maybe I've said enough now about the critique of traditional research. So what about narrative knowing and the narrative narrative approaches? As I said already in the introduction, that I'm not really sure that narrative approaches will solve all the issues involved with the lack of relevance for academic research in relation to the practical world, but maybe. And some basic arguments why. When practitioners use narrative knowledge, therefore, as researchers, we have, I think, a motivation to be concerned with people's stories and practitioner stories. Practitioners themselves use narrative explanations. For example, the farmer uses narrative explanations. My brother or my cousin said to himself, well, last year the snow lasted very long, and I did that, and so that happened. Now this year seems to be that the snow disappeared much earlier. Now, what about my experience of this previous year, when the snow disappeared as early as this year? What happened that time? And based upon that, what do I think? When shall I take my tools to work with the soil? Shall I wait maybe another day? Or should I do it today? What will be the best effect? So this is the way the practitioner reasons in order to improve his farming. But he doesn't need only to go to his own memory. He discusses with his neighbors, farmers, and they say, well, I had that experience, and the other year this and that happened, so now I think that. So this is a way that knowledge, practical knowledge, can be transferred. However, farmers are not always this way, because they think, I will not share my findings, my best experience I will keep for myself. So I will not share it with my neighbor. So I want my neighbor to envy me, to see that my crop is higher than his. And if I tell him my experience, his crop will be as good as mine. So I am not going to do this. So in this way, what it really sums up to is that also in social sciences, more stories are needed in order to increase knowledge which is practical, which is of use for the practical world. Having said